I mean, the principle of sustainability is that it actually should save you money if you approach things in a sustainable fashion, whatever business you're in, whether you're in retail, production, manufacturing, consulting, media. If you approach things in a sustainable fashion, and to me, sustainability involves 4 E's. So there's energy, there's environment, there's ethics, and there's economy. So often people say it's not sustainable for our country or our company to be run this way, so we've got to make some changes. But they're thinking purely on the economy data, the economics of it. We've got to be economically or financially sustainable. But if you look at things in a holistic way, which is what sustainability is all about, it's how we can produce goods where we have less waste, or nothing goes to waste, which is even better. We reduce the energy use that we need, the amount of energy we need to produce goods. We reduce the amount of water and chemicals and other things. One of the best examples in the world is a company called Interface, who produce carpet tiles. And they have a policy of zero. They really want to reduce to zero their use of resources. So the carpet tiles they make can be 100% recycled. So it's an approach that you might have heard talk about the circular economy or the blue economy, which really means nothing goes to waste. It means we reduce our energy use to the bare minimum, or we use renewable energy. So again, it's not a waste of resources. It's always available. So it's really an approach that looks at that. Now, this can be applied to any business, small or large. And if people want to reduce the cost of production, they can do it by looking very carefully at their energy use, their water use, their chemical use, transport, the supply chain. So really there's an economic benefit to be gained by approaching things in a sustainable fashion. So people have said to me, oh, but being sustainable is very expensive. I said, no, it's not. If you analyze it properly, just look at your energy use alone. To be more energy efficient, you're not only saving energy, you're saving money. So that makes perfectly good business sense to do that. So a sustainable business, it can be a small business, it can be a large business, but it's managing your business to have the least impact on the environment, but also to manage the resources, including people. So being productive, being more productive, being more innovative, being more sustainable is good for business, but it's also good for the environment. This came directly to me when I asked Amory Lovins, who's a famous American, he's a sustainability, efficiency, energy efficiency guru, Amory Lovins of the Rocky Mountain Institute. And we were talking, and he was giving a talk about energy waste, energy conservation, energy efficiency, renewable energy. And he said, yes, up to 90%. Now, I'm not saying in all cases 90% of all energy produced is wasted, but in many cases it is, particularly when we're talking about the waste from the transmission of electricity. So from the point where, let's say, electricity is produced by a coal-fired power station, so the amount of energy that is produced, that is actually used in the production or generation of energy, electricity in this case, at a coal-fired power station. So there's waste at that process, the burning process, when we're burning coal to drive the generators to produce the electricity. So there's waste there. In the transmission, and particularly with electricity, where we have these pylons that carry electricity by cables across thousands of kilometers in many cases to where it's used at the consumer. So just in that transmission process, there's a loss. He's divided it up so you can measure the loss at each division, each part of this process. And then, of course, when that electricity comes into your home or your business, there's the energy loss in the use of that energy. So you're wasting it at that level. You're using more than you need to run air conditioning, to run heating, to run boilers. So there's at least, and all the research that's been done by energy managers, energy audits, shows that at least 20% of the energy that you use can be saved through just more efficient use of machinery, equipment, lighting, etc. So even at the consumer end, we're losing on average, I'd say 20% that we can do better. So if you take those, you can add those up and you can show that yes, 90% is not impossible because there's energy being lost at many stages of the production, distribution and consumption. Green productivity is to me the same thing as talking about sustainability because it's sustainable, it's sustainably managing resources, in this case energy, but productivity covers everything. Productivity covers the more productive use of all resources. So if we focused on energy alone, being more energy efficient in the way we run our equipment, the way we run our offices, the way we run our vehicles, the whole supply chain, that to me all comes under that green productivity label, if we're going to label things. So being more productive to me is just makes good sense. So to me, I think if we use words like productivity, innovation, sustainability, efficiency, these all together mean we're going to really achieve something. So just energy alone, energy we often tackle first when we're talking about sustainability. Well, straight away I can have someone that walk into your building or your office or your factory and see where you can make some savings in energy use. So that straight away is being more productive and being more sustainable. So it's sort of a bit of a no-brainer, but it's still a hard sell because people just don't see that they should change their ways of doing things. I've spoken to even individuals in terms of, they say, well, we have to have the air conditioning on at home. In Singapore, for example, where it is a tropical climate and it's also a humid climate much of the time. How can you manage without air conditioning? I said, I can actually work from my home without air conditioning. I will have fans, so there's the air moving. I'll have doors and windows open. I'll have natural light. And I don't need light, and I don't need air conditioning. And I can write books, I can consult, I can do all my work without air conditioning. Oh, it's impossible. I said, it's not impossible. Try it. You can do it. So, I mean, nothing is impossible, but sometimes we just don't want to change our ways. So there's a mindset change that's needed too. The other point that was made when I was involved in the National Energy Efficiency Conference a couple of years ago, people said that energy efficiency isn't sexy. To have solar panels on your roof or to have a wind turbine, or these things might be sexy because it's something you can see. You can't see energy efficiency, but you can see the results because you will save money and you will save energy at the same time, and you can see it on your energy bill, on your power bill when you get it. But it's still a hard sell. It's hard to convince people that they should use less. And that's another thing about sustainability and productivity. People have to see the benefit. Now, if the monetary benefit isn't big enough or great enough, they feel that they might, we're going to suffer in some way. Maybe we're going to get hot, or we're going to lose production because we reduce the amount of energy used. That's not the case. I mean, if you look at things properly, and I've got a friend who's an energy management expert, and he's found ways where he can save 20, 30, sometimes 50% of the energy that is used in a supermarket, in a factory, in a building, in an office block, just by applying principles of better measurement of the energy that's being used, better metering, better sensors, so you're using the energy that you need in the right place. But how many times do you go into a building or a conference where it's either too cold or too hot? So energy isn't being managed to suit the people. So there's a lot that can be done. So green productivity to me is the same as sustainability. It's managing resources to get the best use, to produce as many goods, but do it in a very productive, innovative and sustainable fashion. Yes, there's a German sociologist actually called Sasha Kajan, Sachakagan, Sasha Kajan. And he gave a talk in Singapore a few months ago when there was a lighting festival. And I was involved as the sustainability consultant for this lighting festival. But at the same time as helping to make sure the festival was well managed from a sustainability standpoint, we also ran an energy saving campaign. So we involved 51 buildings in Singapore to save energy over a 3-week period. So we saved 265,000 kilowatt hours over 3 weeks just by applying, voluntarily, applying some principles of turning off the lights in certain areas, not having the air conditioning too cool, managing energy, so we actually saved. And at the same time, Sasha gave a talk about involving artists, involving creative people, involving designers, to design our cities, our places where we live and work, so they can be more sustainable, but applying creative principles. Now I've talked about maybe applying engineering principles, but we can design our buildings in such a way that they can still be very comfortable, we can still be productive, but we can still enjoy living or working in a building. And it's interesting, the whole green building movement has both directed itself to save energy and save the use of materials and make those buildings more productive. But they're also, amazingly, they're healthier buildings. So we get rid of the sick building syndrome by designing our buildings in such a way that they're more comfortable to work and live in. And definitely there's been research that shows there are less sick days by staff, by people working and living in green buildings because they're more productive, they don't get sick, the air is cleaner and better. So there's a definite correlation between healthy buildings and green buildings, in the same way that designers can design buildings, places to live and work, that are conducive to enjoying the experience of being in that building, as well as being energy efficient, being more productive. So it's bringing in the designer, so it's not just an engineer's job, it's a designer's job. And I know some architects who are approaching this. So we're giving pleasure in the same way the lighting festival, and to come back to that, we wanted to show through the lighting festival a very enjoyable event with beautiful lighting and things happening, but done in a very energy efficient way. So sustainability doesn't mean you have to suffer, you have to be bored, you can actually still enjoy life. And I know a lot of artists, in fact my wife's an artist, my son's an artist, and artists are very close to nature, very close to the environment, and they enjoy making good use of resources, using recycled materials. Affordable art is based on using materials in a way that it's not going to cost you a lot. In the same way we're hearing about using PET bottles to turn into material in clothes. So design, art, creativity can impact on both product design as well as building design, as well as the way we design our cities. So sustainability and art can come together in a very productive way. Well, that's only 6 years away, so I would like to see, and as the outcome document that was produced at the event in March this year, where we looked at sustainability applied to cities, applied to energy, applied to sustainable consumption. So I think if we set some targets and reach those targets of 20% improvement in energy efficiency, 20% of our energy coming from renewable sources. And we can apply this not just to countries, because sometimes that's difficult. We can apply it to our businesses, to our communities, to our cities, to our homes for that matter. So if we looked at that, so even if we said 20%, and I think a lot of us could do a lot better than that, if we can walk more, if we can use cycles, if we can use more sustainable energy efficient transport, or clean energy transport. So I'd like to see by 2020 not only the adoption of, but a lot of those targets being reached, and people saying, we can do better, we can do more. And I think once you start thinking about this, and once you start looking at sustainability in a holistic fashion. So it's going beyond sort of the green trend or the green tinge to being totally green, or as I say now, because there's a movement now towards blue. So sustainable, and I gave a talk in March that we said I've got to take sustainable cities from being green to blue. Now blue is the transformational phase. It's where we don't just attack the edges, we attack the whole transformation of our businesses. And it's the example I gave of Interface being a company that transformed itself and still produce, and they're still the biggest carpet tile producer in the world, but they're doing it by having less impact on the environment, less use of resources, and managing things in a very sustainable way. So I'd like to see more companies. I mean, there's some very good companies like Unilever who talk about sustainable living, and they want to promote sustainable living. We talk about Nestle as a food production company who are looking at better managing things better, so they use less palm oil, they use less impact on the environment. Companies that use less paper or they recycle more. So there's a lot of companies that are already showing very fine leadership, but I'd like to see more. I'd like to see SMEs seeing that it's not just something big companies can do, but small companies can do it as well. So we can transform the way we do business, saving energy, saving resources, less impact on the environment, and also enjoying life. We can enjoy life and be sustainable at the same time. I think there needs to be perhaps more follow-through. I mean, APO is doing a wonderful job of organising platforms and conferences and events, but there needs more follow-through, and I think some of the countries need more help. I mean, learning from others. I don't know how many people have said to me today and at other conferences I'd like to talk to you more because you said this, but how could we apply that in our situation? Or we're a little bit different in our country. Maybe Singapore's done this very well, but we don't have the resources to do it that way. I mean, and to be quite honest, I mean, I say a lot of good things about Singapore, but there's a lot more Singapore could do. Singapore can learn from other countries, like what Taiwan's doing with waste management and recycling. Singapore could do more. What Japan's done in terms of the whole sustainability approach to production and manufacturing, just-in-time manufacturing, being more productive in the way it produces goods, Singapore can learn from. Singapore can learn from other countries who have maybe involved people more in the process and not just said technology is the answer, because I think we need to go beyond that. Singapore is looking right now at how we can rely on the car less and already people use public transport quite a lot, but we could provide better facilities for people to cycle, to walk, so we can make our living experience, our cities better. So I think APO could, and I'm happy to help them do it, to communicate and have an ongoing process of learning from others, sharing. So all the countries that are involved in APO share best practices. Say, hey, this worked for us this way, why don't you try it? Or if you're interested in hearing how we did it, maybe you can try the same in your country. So I think there's a lot of sharing and a lot of communicating that needs to go on that could see that best practices and case studies are better shared. The other point that I make these days, and I did earlier as well, is we need to collaborate. It's no longer them and us. It's no longer waiting for the government to do something, but working with government, public-private partnerships to see where we can achieve more together. And the private sector is very keen to do this. So I'm seeing big companies and small companies working with government and with the private sector and with NGOs and with community groups to get things happening. So it's a cooperative, collaborative approach where we'll achieve something.